One of the main arguments of reading the Bible supernaturally is that the goal, the ultimate goal of the Bible, determines in significant ways how we read the Bible. So the goal that I lay out, for example, the ultimate goal, is that God's value and God's beauty would be exalted in the white-hot worship of a bride for God's Son gathered from all the peoples of the world. So you can see that the goal of reading there is not just knowing, but worshiping. But as soon as I say that the goal of reading governs the process of reading, we're in a problem, aren't we? Because in order to know the goal, I have to read. And yet you've just told me that I can't read properly until I know the goal. So what are we going to do about this? It seems like we're trapped. There's a name for this trap. It's called the hermeneutical circle. And it's often described like this. You have to know the whole of a literary unit in order to properly construe the parts. But you can't know the whole until you construe the parts. And so it feels like we're trapped and there's a vicious circle. So what's the way out? The way out is that good writers always give enough self-correcting clues so that as you begin to read their document, false understandings that might happen after one or two words get corrected by a third or fourth word, and clauses later correct what you saw in the first clauses. For example, if you jump into Colossians chapter 2, verse 21, and you read the words, do not handle, do not taste, do not touch. And you might say, oh, I got that. Paul is giving us some nice, crisp, plain guidelines for how to keep ourselves pure. And then you broaden your lens out to take more of the parts into account in construing the whole. And you realize, wait a minute, he said, why do you submit to regulations like do not handle, do not touch? And you realize, oh, I just made a mistake in construing those commands as though they were to be obeyed when Paul says, don't obey those commands. So you get a picture there of how an author gives enough clues in his context that your mistakes in putting together the whole from the parts gets corrected as you go along. So here's what that means for my purposes in this book. When I say that in order to read the Bible as it is intended to be read, you have to know what the goal of the Bible is, and yet you have to read the Bible in order to know the goal. We go ahead and we start reading, and we put the pieces together, and I spent a third of the book almost trying to persuade you that the ultimate goal of this book is not just to stock our heads with truth, but to inflame our hearts with worship. If you get persuaded of that, then you circle back and you realize, oh my goodness, reading this book requires of me powers that I do not have. I can't make myself be a worshiping person. I might be able to accumulate some factual knowledge, but I can't change my heart and make myself have a flaming white-hot zeal for God. And you're thrown then onto prayer and faith so that God would come and do a supernatural work as you read, so that now that you've understood what the goal is, you read in reliance upon the power of the Holy Spirit.